on this. All's not fair in divorce. For better or worse. When it turns worse, it's potential for divorce. Can you have divorce without destruction? My answer is yes, and it's with mediation. And that's our show for today. But first, I have to talk about my new obsession, All's Fair. It's the new Hulu show with Kim Kardashian, Naomi Watts, Glenn Close, Niecy Nash, and my new on-screen obsession, my new lady crush. I'm madly in love with Sarah Paulson. And this isn't my first time seeing her, but in this show, she is outstanding. Now, let's talk Kim K for a second. Love her or hate her, you have to give it to her. The woman is a brilliant businesswoman. Putting her stamp as executive producer on this venture, stellar. Stayed up late last night watching 3 episodes, and it was 3 back-to-back episodes that featured Sarah Paulson's character. Hysterical, crying, laughing. I mean, even my husband was crying, laughing. She's hysterical. She's on point. The writing is smart. It's witty. It's quick. Her comedic timing, perfection. Her acting, outstanding. Better than my speaking right now. So I just couldn't turn it off. I even love how the show brings back older TV and film favorites. Last night it was the guy from Ally McBeal. Now, one of the things about the show that I love, and I do love it, I'm living vicariously watching this show, is how they're dripping in money. Between foie gras to Fashion Week to private jets, it is opulence. And that is the point of today's divorce mediation episode. While All's Fair plotline is fictional, it does highlight the expense of divorce as evident by their luxurious lifestyles. And I'm talking about the lifestyles of the divorce lawyers. But it doesn't have to be expensive with mediation. Today, I am joined by a divorce mediator who can save your sanity, your wallet, and your future. She is a fellow NADP member. That's the National Association of Divorce Professionals. She has been there herself and has saved clients thousands of dollars during the divorce process. She's a dear friend, and she's also a networking genius. So if you're thinking about divorce or know someone who is, you do not want to miss today's episode. So, welcome back to Sip on This, the show where we talk love, life, and all the messy, beautiful transitions that make us human. If this is your first time joining me, then welcome. I'm your host, Deirdre Haggerty. I am a certified career, life, and relationship coach, which, if you're thinking about divorce, maybe see a therapist or a relationship coach first. I'm also the founder of Coaching with Miss D, which offers life, relationship, and career coaching to align your values and your vision of life. I am truly so excited you are joining me today because Jann is amazing. We're going to have a conversation, coffee or tea in hand, as we chat about life, careers, relationships, and all the little things that can shape who we are. I won't lecture you or tell you what to do. It's just the two of us in my cute little coffee shop behind me, chatting about topics that make us laugh or drive us nuts or hurt us to our very core, like divorce. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with a distinguished guest, Jann Bate Catto, an expert in divorce mediation, uncontested divorce, and collaborative divorce services throughout New Jersey. With a rare combination of training as a therapist, financial planner, and certified divorce financial analyst, Jann brings an extraordinary depth of understanding to the couples she serves. Her approach is grounded in empathy, clarity, and a commitment to reducing conflict. Through TLC mediation, she guides individuals with steadiness and compassion, demonstrating that separation does not have to be destructive. Instead, it can become a thoughtful and empowering transition. I am so honored to welcome her to the conversation. So please help me welcome my friend, Jann. Hello, Jann. Welcome to Sip on This. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, me too. I am very excited for you to answer some questions to help with divorce, which is not easy for so many people. And having met you, having known you now for, um, oh gosh, it's been over 6 months now, I believe. I see how you help people through that to make it as, I don't want to say easy, but as easy as possible.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just going to start off with a few questions. And the
Okay.
first is, many people believe divorce has to be painful and combative. From your experience, what is the biggest misconception couples have about the divorce process? And how does mediation shift that narrative?
So divorce is painful, right? Even when people feel really ready to get divorced, it is a loss for both parties. And I have never met anyone that likes sharing assets and sharing time with children, right? That's hard. Giving up money, giving up time with your children, giving up Christmas morning. I mean, those are all really hard, hard things to do. So I don't think anyone can do anything about reducing the emotional pain related to making a decision to get a divorce. But if you go through mediation, you keep the control in your family about the decisions that are made about how you're going to do that. So, in litigation, when you each have an attorney, the attorneys are really negotiating on the party's behalf. But when you're in mediation, you're negotiating yourselves. So, nobody knows a couple better than them, right? They know them, they know each other's work schedules, they know each other's personalities, they know their children, they know kind of how their family has operated while they've been married. And so that I think really lends itself to helping them create a divorce arrangement that's going to work best for the family because they know,
Hmm.
right? So in mediation, they have a lot more control over the process and the outcome, right? A divorce is considered an uncontested divorce. So you could literally do whatever you want. I mean, I'll share the framework of the law and help them understand what does equitable distribution mean, et cetera. But if they want to do something completely out of the box that's super creative, that works for the two of them, they absolutely can. And it's encouraged because the more time and effort they put into thinking about what's going to be right for their family, the better agreement they're going to end up with.
So then, in a nutshell, you are the person that helps them advocate for themselves.
I really encourage it. I encourage them to try not to get too stuck in their position, to try to think outside of the box. And I think sometimes just being a third party neutral in the conversation, sometimes I'm able to see and hear things that they are sharing in the meeting that they don't recognize, right? Because when you're married, you push each other's buttons, your defense mechanisms are up. You don't always hear what the other person is saying. But for me, being a third party neutral, sometimes I start to see a trend like, oh, this particular thing seems super important to wife, and this particular thing seems super important to other spouse, right? I mean, it could be wife and wife, husband and husband, and husband and wife.
Sure.
Um, right? So super important to the other spouse. And sometimes they don't see that. So if I lay it out for them and say, it seems like this is really important to you, spouse, and the other person is really important to you. What if you did something along the lines of whatever? Sometimes that's helpful because
Mm,
sometimes they're actually saying the same thing, but they don't hear each other because of the way that they're delivering it.
mm. Which is literally the perfect segue into my next question, because I feel as if your training as a therapist really helps with this, as you can see that, because therapists, coaches, we are trained to listen.
Yes.
And you're also a financial planner. I mean, you wear multiple hats, which I love. And you're a certified divorce financial analyst. So then, how does combining the emotional insight with financial clarity change the outcomes for couples choosing mediation?
So when you start to research mediators, people will find there's all types of backgrounds and skills among mediators. Mediators are not licensed in New Jersey, so you don't have to be any particular uh, certification. So you will find that there are mediators who have a background and who are currently lawyers. And then you will find that there are mediators who are therapists, perhaps still in practice, but also doing mediation. You'll find that there are mediators whose training and background is CPA work. So there's a vast and very diverse group of backgrounds among mediators.
Mm-hmm.
I think divorce is largely emotion and money. So I think having a background as a therapist, financial planner, certified divorce financial analyst is really a great background for helping people navigate discussion related to emotion and money, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to separate things and move forward? It's all emotion and money. So, for many years before I was a mediator, I worked in litigation cases as a certified divorce financial analyst. And sometimes that was the only time that people were really looking at the financial impact of the decisions, right? So I'll give you an example. A pretty perfect example is somebody really wants to stay in the marital home. They think it would be best for the children. They don't want to uproot the kids from school. Maybe that makes the most sense affordability wise right now, and they really want to stay in the house. But sometimes, especially in litigation, I find nobody looks at the numbers to see, well, this person's staying in the house with their earned income plus or minus support payments. Are they going to be able to afford it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they looked at the numbers and they saw that they're going to be short 2,000 a month, would they still want to stay? Because, going through divorce is stressful. And most people, when they get to the end of the divorce process, they want peace. They want peace and tranquility. They want to just breathe and feel comfortable in what's the beginning of their next chapter. And if now they have 2,000 a month of financial strain, that's stressful, right? So
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you want to know up front if you were putting yourself in a financial situation that was going to be really stressful for you post divorce?
Right.
And not every mediator or lawyer looks at that when people are trying to make big financial decisions. So I encourage couples to understand, what is your world going to look and feel like financially post divorce? What is your cash flow going to look like? Sometimes we're testing it out. If they see they're going to be short 2,000 a month, they say, you know what? I really didn't want to sell the house, but now that we're understanding the numbers and the cash flow, maybe that makes the most financial sense, which in the long run may be best for all of us, because you're not going to have a stressed out parent trying to figure out how to make more money or reduce expenses in order to afford where they're living.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. And so there lies all of your training and how that really truly helps the couple as they're navigating through this difficult time. Um,
I think the other thing too about financial planning as a background is that a lot of people don't really understand exactly what they have in financial products and insurance. They don't maybe, well, sometimes they don't actually have any idea what the financial landscape is of the couple. Maybe they've operated really separately financially. Maybe one person has handled more of the money, the other person has handled more of the home and the kids. So for a lot of couples, this is the first time that they're actually getting educated about the whole picture financially, all assets and debts. And sometimes
mm,
they don't understand, what is the difference between a Roth IRA and a CD or an investment account or whatever, right?
mhm,
Lots of confusion around insurance too. The fact that I'm insurance licensed and understand a lot about insurance, have been an insurance broker for 25 years. Sometimes people don't understand how these products work. So having somebody who can help them understand and educate them about what they have can sometimes be helpful in making decisions about what's going to happen with that particular part of it.
mm. Yeah. I mean, as you're saying that, not that I'm planning on getting a divorce, but it's literally the Roth IRA. Like, I'm not thinking about that in the whole process. That wouldn't be something that would be, I mean, maybe it would be if I was going through it, but if I'm dealing with all the emotional aspects and then the house, and like you said, you know, do I want to stay? Do I want to go? Those other details would be at the back end. So it really would be helpful to have somebody with your knowledge guide the couple through that. Um, Speaking of finances, we're in the holiday season, obviously. And it's, you know, costly. Just celebrating the holidays, buying gifts, you know, being with family, hosting the holidays. Do you find, and this kind of ties into my next question, do you find that people reach out to your services more during the holiday season?
So typically, December is quiet and
Mm.
January is insane. And so I think a lot of people think, you know what? We just got to get through the next couple weeks. We're going to give the kids one more nice Christmas in the house. And then boom, in January, it's all going to start. So typically, every divorce professional is stretched way beyond their limits in January. But I
Wow.
have to say, right now, I'm experiencing a lot more activity this month in December than normal. And I think it does have to do with what you just talked about. I think cost of living, the basics of cost of living right now is really hard for people. The cost of
Mm-hmm.
food, the cost of housing, renting a place right now. What is it? 4 times more than it was a few years ago. So that certainly adds to it. They're just before we even add the holidays and purchasing gifts, people are strained and stressed financially right now, just
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, health insurance, housing, food, the things that people think of as basics in life are inflated.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
now you add on credit card debt related to trying to buy things for family and friends for the holidays or host or whatever it is. It's very stressful financially right now for people.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. It is. I mean, you see it everywhere. You hear it everywhere. It's not easy. So then, I guess then based upon your experience, what early signs should couples look for that indicate mediation or an uncontested divorce might be a better route for them than a traditional adversarial divorce?
So I want to back up a little bit and say, like, when you start to recognize as a couple that you're starting to think about maybe your life would be better not living with this particular person,
Mm.
I really, really encourage people to get involved with marriage counseling. I am surprised by the amount of people that come to me to get divorced who have never tried marriage counseling.
Mhm.
And I can tell sometimes when I'm in a mediation when there's still love and respect there. I mean, listen, things happen in marriage, right? People go through really hard times in marriage. There's a lot of different things that go on that hurt each other, hurt the relationship. But even really good marriages are really hard. So, you know, finding a quality marriage counselor and working together to try to understand each other better, work through things that have happened, I'm always going to encourage that first. So when people first start thinking, oh, maybe I want to get divorced, I would say, well, get to marriage counseling as fast as possible. Because sometimes by the time people get to the divorce table, it's too far gone for them for marriage counseling. And
Mm.
some people have tried, but maybe they haven't worked with the right person, or, there were other factors going on that made it impossible. But anyway, um, I think everyone who has decided to get divorced, every single couple should try mediation first,
Mm.
because most mediators just charge an hourly fee. There is no front retainer. Uh, you're not tied into anything. Try it. If you can't get to resolution and mediation, okay, go to litigation. But the difference in cost and time is mind-blowing. The average litigated divorce in New Jersey, meaning you each get your own attorney, somebody files in court, the other party counterfiles, the average cost is 50,000. if you're paying a mediator an hourly rate and the two of you are really working together to try to come up with agreements outside of mediation, maybe you're only meeting with the mediator 2 or 3 times and then you have your agreement. And then it's just processing of paperwork. So maybe you're spending 2 to 3 thousand versus 50, and you have a better co-parenting relationship with each other going forward because the litigation process usually hurts the relationship even more. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very nasty and very toxic, and people get hurt even more in the litigation process than they already were at when they decided to get divorced. So I think every couple, if they've exhausted all efforts to stay married
Mm-hmm.
and they want to get divorced, they should always try mediation first. There's so low risk. If you pay for an hour of mediation and you don't like the mediator, or it becomes very apparent to you in that hour that your spouse is not going to cooperate in mediation, then go get your lawyer and go to litigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to litigation first and you put a $5,000 to $10,000 retainer down, and then 6 months into it, you say, wow, this is so frustrating. They've already spent my 10,000 and nothing is happening. I want to go try mediation. Well, you've already spent a lot of time and money, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only time that I would say mediation is not a good avenue for people is when there is domestic violence, because everybody needs to be safe. And if there's domestic violence going on, then you're best served going through lawyers who are representing you to try to keep everybody as safe as possible.
I'm listening to you, and it's actually when you said the number 50,000, it's kind of mind boggling to me when, you know, what is that? Like, that's like the median income. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have that data in front of me. But if that's what one person in the marriage is making, maybe it's not the whichever spouse, if that's what one person is making, that's their yearly salary.
Or unfortunately, it's selling the house and taking the equity from the house to pay the attorneys.
Mm,
Which, what person do you know who doesn't want as much money in their pockets as possible when they're starting a new life with half the money they had while they were married?
right.
Right? I mean, it's scary. The
Mm-hmm.
financial piece of this is very scary for people. It causes a lot of anxiety. Where
Mm,
am I going to be able to afford to live? Am I going to be able to feed myself? Am I going to have to get an extra job? How am I going to retire? I thought I was going to be able to retire in my 60s. I had to just give up half of my retirement money. I might not retire ever, right? There's so many pieces about this that are hard. Financially, why not keep as much money in your pockets as possible?
mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, New Jersey allows people to do their own divorce. You can sit down with your partner at your kitchen table or Starbucks or wherever, and you could come up with your own agreement, fill out the paperwork, and submit it to the court yourself. It's not recommended because
Mm.
most people who do that end up in my office 5 years later because they didn't realize all the things that they had to figure out. It comes
Mm.
up later. But you don't have to spend a ton of money and be in a battle for 2 years. It's not necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that as well. It could be done, but then, like you said, in a few years later, which and to your point about therapy as well, they could also use a relationship coach.
Absolutely. I always encourage people, whether whether they're going to give it another go with the marriage, which I encourage. Sometimes when people see the financials of what this is going to mean, the divorce is going to mean for them, the impact, they say, "Oh, Jan, maybe we'll go to marriage counseling again for a little while," right? I always encourage them, whether they are going to try to stay together or they're they are going to go through with the divorce. They each need to have their own therapist or divorce coach,
Mm,
because the emotions are there, they are important, they are valid. And if you don't have a place to deal with your emotions, you're not going to be able to be in mediation and be task oriented, which is what keeps the price down, right? So even though I have a background as a therapist, that is not my role as mediator.
Mm-hmm.
So I will often say in the mediation when it's apparent that somebody is just really struggling with their strong feelings related to the divorce, whatever it is, their hurt, their betrayal, their sadness, whatever it is, I say to them, look, these are real feelings and you deserve to have a place to process them. But in this role, I am the mediator and you're paying me hourly to help you get to agreement. So I really want you to have a divorce coach or a therapist to help you with all these feelings so that when you come to mediation, you're able to really stay focused. And they appreciate that because they know what they're paying me hourly and that's not my job here.
Mm.
Could I be, you know, could I go back to being a therapist? Possibly, but I'm in the role of mediator, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to help them get to agreement and in the most time and cost efficient possible way, right?
Mm.
So their feelings are valid, but this isn't the place for them to process them.
No, no, definitely not. And a therapist or a coach could really help them get clear because they're probably not getting heard. They're not feeling as if they're heard. And
Exactly.
that's a place where they will be heard.
Absolutely.
And that could help them gain clarity in the divorce process.
Well,
Um,
Deirdre, I also love what you do with people reinventing themselves with their work because I mean, I have done a ton of mediations where one spouse hasn't worked in, 15 to 30 years.
mhm,
And the expectation of the courts in New Jersey is that everybody works full time post divorce.
mm.
So how scary is that? Right? Or I'm working with somebody who you know, when they got married, they were a teacher working full time. And then when they got married, the finances of the family allowed them to work part time as a dog sitter or a dog walker because that's what they really love to do. Right. But when they go through the divorce process, the expectation is going to be that everybody works full time to their capacity. Right. So if that's you and you've been not working or you've been sort of underemployed, there's going to be a number on your head that's imputed about how much could you make if you were working full time, which can be, again, another very scary thing for people, right? They haven't been working or they've been doing something they love, kind of part time. And now all of a sudden, there's this expectation that they're earning full time to their capacity. How do they figure that out in the midst of all this other stuff? So I
Mhm.
really love that what you do with people for that because I
Oh,
think it's super important for them to have somebody to help them figure that out too. Well, what do I want to go back to being a teacher? Would I rather do something else? What could I make doing that? What skills do I have that would be, um, good in what particular jobs?
mhm.
I think that comes up all the time in mediations.
It's true because maybe it's been 10, 15, 20 years where they haven't worked, but we try to find the skills that they've used. I mean, some people don't realize that the skills that they use to organize their home, or maybe they were a member of the PTA, or they were a PTA president, or treasurer. There are so many different things that they could use, even though they weren't working, to transfer those skills to a job. And maybe it's also,
100% agree.
yeah, a job
100%.
that aligns them with who they are. And that could have been something that's been bothering them their whole existence in the marriage, that they weren't feeling that.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. You often talk about communication breakdowns and financial misunderstandings being major reasons divorce agreements fail. So, then what tools or frameworks do you use to help couples communicate more effectively during mediation? I mean, they're there in mediation because they are communicating, and maybe that's not going to work. But what framework do you use to help them during this process?
So, uh, people can have really different feelings about money when they're married, right? Sometimes you see a spender and then you see the saver, and
Mm.
it's constant conflict. It's constant conflict that one person wants, money to be saved and the other person's, shopping on things the other person doesn't think is necessary. And it's constant conflict all the time. Um, I'm not going to change that for them, but I do keep reminding them that at the end of this, you're both going to be the head of your own new financial household.
Mm.
So you will be creating whatever works for you personally regarding how you save or how you spend. So the sooner we get to the end game, the sooner you get to do that, right? There's also times when, I mean, I've done mediations where one person has had a very serious gambling issue or has had a lot of involvement with something like prostitution, where
Oh,
a lot of the marital funds have gone out, I would just say outside of the marriage, or they've been in a relationship with someone else that they've gone on trips with and taken out to dinner and bought gifts for and stuff. And so some couples will agree that a certain amount of marital funds were spent on things that perhaps weren't really there supporting the family and the marriage, and that
wow.
perhaps the person who wasn't doing those things should get a credit of some kind.
Mm.
So, see, this is like a great example of how in litigation it could really, cost 300,000. So I'm gonna get a private eye. I'm gonna get credit card
Oh.
statements. I'm gonna get all these things, to prove this and that. But we can also talk about it in the mediation. Well, how much do you think was lost over the years with gambling? Or how much do you think was spent on prostitution? Or how much do you think was spent on this extramarital affair? Uh, can you agree on a number? If so, can 50% of that go back to the other person?
Mm.
Right? Like
Wow.
we can figure that out in mediation. It doesn't have to be litigation and private eyes and forensic accountants. All those things drive the price. You can also bring those specialists into mediation if you want to, but you can also could just figure it out in a way that whatever the two of you feel is fair enough.
Mm.
Do we know for sure if 200,000 was spent on something along these lines and the person agrees that 100,000 is going to go to the other person? Do we know for sure that's how much was spent? No. But even when you do forensics and, private eyes and all that other stuff, do we always find out? I don't know, you know?
Wow. Uh, uh, it's that's actually really fascinating to me. And it kind of it's a little shocking. I don't know why I'm shocked by you saying those words, because maybe it's because I'm the person who always wants to think the best of people, but hearing you say that goes on, and I know it goes on. There's as an adult, I understand that, but I guess maybe as someone who's not experienced it or hasn't had anybody around me experiencing it, um,
Well,
it's
you've
a little
also
shocking.
you've been in a long uh marriage.
Yes.
So you don't probably get into conversations with people who are going through something in their marriage that is they're really suffering in,
No.
right? Because they see you and Frank and you guys are so, you're such a great couple. And so they're not gonna choose you to talk to about that. They're gonna find the other people in town that are or online
Yeah.
that are divorcing or have similar stories. That's who they're gonna talk to about it, right?
Yeah. 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 Oh, definitely. I mean, and it's, not to disclose somebody's personal information as client confidentiality, but I had a client yesterday, broke my heart. Um, what this gentleman has gone through in his life and what he's currently going through, not divorce related. And, I had to take a step back. Like I could not wait to see my husband because I needed a hug. And there
Yeah.
and it was just, and it wasn't what you had talked about, but it was something else. And again, I don't want to disclose it, but it was deeply personal, and it was, I just, I had no comment. Obviously I'm coaching and I'm just listening, but when I got off that call, it was heartbreaking. So it
Yeah, what
is.
people go through is
Yeah.
can be really sad. I mean,
Yeah. It
yeah.
is. And I think, like we said earlier, sometimes they just need someone who listens. So speaking of listening, for
Hmm.
somebody who's listening now, and they feel overwhelmed or afraid of what divorce might cost them, especially if you're listening and you felt what I just felt, just listening to you, and whether it's emotionally or financially, what is one reassuring message or first step you wish every couple knew before beginning this process?
So I often ask couples when the mediation is over and we have their memorandum of understanding, I ask them for feedback. What was this experience like for you? Most people are doing this virtually. What was the virtual experience like for you? Do you have any um, thoughts to share with me, constructive criticism, etc.? And a very common line that they will share is, wow, if we had known that this could be this way, if we had known that we could do this in this way that was really not stressful, we would have
Mm,
done this years ago.
wow.
So I think there's just so much conversation out there in the world. You hear about the litigations that go on for 3 years and people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and then they have to hire a parenting coordinator for 450 an hour just to change a pickup time with the kids after because the relationship is so destroyed. You hear all of this. And so you think, oh, I don't know if I'm up for doing all of that. That sounds horrible. We don't have the money for that. It just doesn't have to be that. It just doesn't have to be that. It's the two of you in a private conversation with somebody who is neutral. And we are looking at numbers and we are trying on different scenarios, trying to come up with a plan that both of you feel will work good enough. That's really what it is. And
Mm,
I'm a fan of bringing in outside professionals when needed to understand, to have someone like you to help them with the feelings, but also to understand the financial impact of, you know, the house. Can somebody refinance or not? Let's find out before we agree that that's what you're doing.
mm,
Um, it's scary for everybody getting divorced, I think, right? Even people who have a lot of money, because even the people who have a lot of money, their lifestyle is going to change if they're splitting it. Right? So it's scary for everybody, but it doesn't have to be a nightmare. It really doesn't. If you can come to the mediation table, have a place elsewhere where you're dealing with your emotions related to this, looking at the numbers, trying to understand what both parties need to be able to live comfortably with their kids part of the time post divorce, uh, trying to be as fair as possible. I think that's the best it gets. There's no winner in divorce. Everybody's a loser, right?
yeah.
But if you can get to an agreement with each other that you both feel is, well, that was no fun, but I mean, we were fair to each other. That's the best it gets. And I think you have a much better chance of that happening in mediation than in litigation.
Wow, this was Jan. This was a great conversation. I mean, thank you for sharing your insight and your gentle, practical wisdom. Your work reminds me that even in life's most difficult transitions, there is room for my favorite words: calm, clarity, and dignity. And
Yeah.
I just really want to thank you for being here. This was a wonderful conversation, and I really do hope we reach some people today who need to hear it, especially now during the holiday season where there is financial strife happening all over the place, and somebody might just be feeling overwhelmed and not getting into the holiday spirit because they can't because they're so overwhelmed. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks so much for having me. And I feel like it may be just what people need to hear right now as they're thinking when January comes, it's time to get divorced, right?
Mm,
Just try mediation first. Just
yeah,
try it first. You always have the option to go to the other areas.
yeah. Oh, well, thanks again, Jan. It's
All
always
right,
good
thank
to see
you.
you.
Happy holidays.
That was a great conversation. Thank you, Jan, for joining me. And to our listeners, if you or someone you know is considering divorce and wishes to explore a more peaceful path, I do encourage you to learn more about Jan's services at TLC Mediation. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Sip on This. And again, a huge thank you to Jann Bate Catto for sharing her expertise, her compassion, and her powerful reminder that divorce doesn't need to destroy your peace, or your finances. If you're in New Jersey and considering divorce or simply want to understand your options, visit TLC Mediation and connect with Jann directly. And if today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and join me at coachingwithmissd.com for tools, coaching, and resources to help you reclaim your life and career. And again, I will encourage relationship coaching. It helps. It's a little different than therapy because we're not talking about the past. We're going to work and focus on your current circumstances and how to move on from there to your goals as a couple. Until next time, take a sip. Breathe. It will be okay. Don't you hate when people say that? But it will be okay. Keep moving forward. And remember, it's never too late to begin again, whatever that means for you, and to live your life as your authentic self. It gets me every time because I'm doing it. Live your life as your authentic self, your version, and no one else.